Welcome to the Seminole Wars. In this podcast, we explore how the Seminole Wars came to be, how they were fought, and how they still resonate some 2 centuries later. I am your host, Patrick Swan, and our show is a production of the Seminole Wars Foundation, found online at www.seminolewars.us. We are recording today from the homestead of the Foundation in Bushnell, Florida. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome. This week, we conclude our 2-part episode with Doug Gardner. Doug Gardner last week told us about the Freedom Memorial Plaza, a special initiative to bring monuments to the Florida National Cemetery that recognize the veterans who are buried within the grounds of the cemetery. This week, we'll talk about the cemetery itself. Florida National Cemetery is the second busiest national cemetery in the whole federal veterans cemetery system. Doug Gardner will discuss what the cemetery is all about, how you get into it, and how it continues to serve veterans in the Central Florida area. Doug Gardner, welcome back to the Seminole Wars.
Thank you very much.
Doug, before we begin, I want to remind our listeners that there are no Seminole War veterans buried in the Florida National Cemetery, although there is a marker to a Seminole War veteran, as we mentioned last week, David Moniac, but his remains are not actually there. That being said, Florida National Cemetery is the home to a Seminole War reenactor. That would be David Chobee Exum, formerly of Seffner, who died in 2006 at age 53. He had been a volunteer for the Hillsborough River State Park Native American Living History Program and had been a member of the Native American Outreach Group. Exum was an Air Force veteran, which qualified him for interment in the cemetery. So there is a Seminole Wars tie to Florida National Cemetery besides David Moniac. Many people may not know that based on your honorable discharge veteran service, you are eligible for a funeral and burial at a national cemetery. Tell us about this, Doug.
There's probably a lot of veterans that don't know it. Until I was asked to go put out flags one Memorial Day about 7 years ago, I didn't realize that any veteran qualified for a free burial at a national cemetery. And I think that's pretty neat. And then the fact that it's designed for any veteran without cost. They can't ask for money by law, and you get your place there after you die. And if your place is next to a general or a private, it doesn't matter. You go in order. And it's just, I can't describe how beautiful the place is. You'll be able to see some of that on our website. But everyone knows what Arlington looks like. This is our Arlington in Florida, and it is spectacular, particularly Memorial Day when all the flags are in front of the graves.
Doug, how do we find the cemetery's website?
If you Google Florida National Cemetery, you will easily get to them, and it'll be a .gov site, take you to the VA and NCA National Cemetery Administration, and you'll be able to find Florida National Cemetery there.
What is special about the location of this national cemetery?
It was right in the heart of where all the Second Seminole War was waged. There's a national forest right next to it with Lakuchi. It's all government property there, so they were able to get that property, and they've got plenty of room for expansion. There's just all kinds of that local history, which to me kind of ties it into the National Cemetery itself. Fort King Road is nearby also in Bushnell, as well as the Dade Battlefield, and as well as the Wahoo Swamp. And so it's just really a pretty neat combination. And I'll make a couple other comments about Florida National Cemetery. I just saw something not too long ago that Arlington Cemetery was having something like 7,000 burials a year. Well, that's what Florida National has. If you think of that, 7,000 services a year, they're averaging more than 30 a day. It's pretty amazing.
30 services a day. Usually there's family members to attend, but for some veterans, there are no family members. How does the VA and the Florida National Cemetery handle them?
Once a quarter on the second Wednesday at 3 p.m., they have a service for the unattended. And what that means is that any serviceman that was buried there, or service person that was buried there in the last 3 months without a next of kin there and without anyone to accept the American flag or the military honors that each of them, we take all of those names. We have a service for all of them together, and we'll get the Patriot Guard riders always show up. We'll have 40 or 50 other people that show up. And it's a full military honors, honor guard, rifle salute, taps, chaplain, and then each name is read in their rank and years of service, and a bell is rung. And it's just really a neat service for those veterans that were unattended when they were interred.
Doug, so of course you welcome veterans to visit the cemetery. and you let veterans know they can be buried there.
If you're a veteran or your family member is a veteran, you can't help but love this place. You'll be able to see where we're going to put the monuments out there, and you may even get turned on to that too and get involved in a wall panel and or volunteering at the cemetery or putting out flags on Memorial Day.
I presume if you didn't already have an interest in the Seminole Wars, being at the cemetery, the Florida National Cemetery, in the heart of where the battles of the Second Seminole War were fought, that you may find the location particularly rewarding.
I got into the Seminole Wars by being part of Florida National Cemetery, and anything about the Seminole Wars I enjoyed.
Doug Gardner, thanks for joining us for the Seminole Wars.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure. Come and see us at Florida National Cemetery.
Now, to honor the veterans who were buried in Florida National Cemetery and in national cemeteries around the country, as well as the Seminole combatants as part of the Seminole Wars, we end this podcast with some moments of silence. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please take a moment to like us on Facebook at Seminole Wars Foundation. Leave a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider. Your reviews and comments help new listeners discover us and help us keep the show going. Visit our website at www.seminolewars.us for blogs, articles, news, books, events, membership information, and how to subscribe to this podcast. We'll be back soon with a new episode of the Seminole Wars Podcast. The Seminole Wars Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to preservation, education, and publication of Seminole Wars history throughout the state of Florida. This podcast is copyrighted the Seminole Wars Foundation 2021. All rights reserved. Front bumper music, The Devil's Garden, Roast 'em, provided by kind permission of Reedy Arnman. Back bumper music, Second Seminole Win, by Jed Merrim and Ricky Pittman, courtesy of Ricky Pittman. All rights reserved.